This multifaceted world, there are many people who are very creative. Some of these people, creativity go as far as art. Others are able to art as well as create things with their hands. And there are those who have a magnitude of an imagination that will draw you in. There is this one particular person who grew up in a great big house. The house was on land that once was a graveyard. Even as a baby, and it was a female baby, she displayed so much magic that her grandmother thought that she was a dark witch. She would tell people about things they haven't done and the things that they were going to do, as well as the things they've done in secret that they didn't want anyone else to know about. By the time she became 2 years old, she was reverenced by her elders for the wisdom that she spoke, knowingly or unknowingly, to them. One day, she was in the kitchen with her mother, and her mother was speaking Spanish. She had just learned. The young child knew nothing about Spanish, but began to speak Spanish fluently, which caused her mom to go into fear and put her out. That's right, out of the house, and made her sit on the back steps facing the little storage room that was about 20 feet away from the house. Inside that storage room was a water pump. They did not have city water during that time, so they invested in a water pump and had a well dug, and that is where their water came from. On the other side of the house was a big septic tank. Her dad dug out this great big hole, and the people came, poured the concrete, and voila, a septic tank was produced. Quite as it was known, her dad was a very spiritual person as well, but he kept his under wraps. Why? Because during that time, if you displayed any of your spirituality, you was deemed to be crazy or insane. She began to see things when she lied down at night. People standing around her bed. Some of them had no head, and others just seemed to float, wearing flowing gowns, long white hair, and face as white as snow. One night, while lying in bed, she began to whimper So her mother came to her bedside and asked what was the problem. She told her mom about the people that stood around the bed, being so young. She had to try to formulate on describing these people to her mom. She said 2 of them, the people, had no head, dressed in white with stripes going across their clothes. Her mother was afraid, but she stood there on the side of the bed, showing no fear. As time went on, the young girl started school, kindergarten. And while in kindergarten, she met a few amazing people who she thought would be her friends forever. Turns out, as the semester ended, both of the young girls, were taken out of school and moved to a different neighborhood and city. She gave one a pair of gold earrings that was given to her by her mother. During that time, gold was precious, and the only people that could afford gold earrings were those of second class and higher. This young girl became in tune with the house that she lived in. Doors opened and closed, windows closed, and you would hear laughter coming down the dead-end street as if people were coming from a party, and they would come on the porch. But when she looked out the window, there was no one there. While playing with her wooden building blocks, she heard someone call her name. She thought it was her mom, so she jumped up and ran to the kitchen, and she said, "Huh?" And her mom said, "What is it?" And she said, "You called me." And she said, "No, I did not." She said, "Go play." The young girl went back and began to play with her building blocks, and she heard the voice again call her, just like her mom does when she's far away, with that country voice. She ran to the kitchen again and said, "You just called me again." Her mom said, "No, I didn't." But her mom was aware that that was the call from the Most High. She told her that next time you hear that voice call your name, say, "Here am I, Lord. What would you have me to do?" She heard the voice once more call her name, and she looked up at the ceiling where the voice came from. And she repeated what her mother told her. "Here am I, Lord. What would you have me to do?" And from that day on, her life has never been the same. She began to get visitations from the spiritual realm, and would go back and tell her mom upon waking what she saw and what she was told. And her mom, being a spiritual interpreter, was able to tell her exactly what those dreams meant. One day, while hanging clothes out, her mom and she were watching the clouds coming in. She said, "Oh my, it's about to rain. And the only thing that's dry is the sheets. Let's grab the sheets and take them inside." Being so small, she couldn't reach the clothesline. So all she could do is be company. Her job was to hand the clothespins out of the basket. Nothing more, nothing less. The wind began to blow, and the rain began to come in. And her mom said, "We're not going to have time to get everything off the line. Come on, let's go inside." At that moment, the young girl stood still, head erect, and said not one word. The rain came and it stopped behind her. Her mom was in awe, and she went to the clothesline and grabbed everything that she could, picked up the basket, put it on the porch, and then told her, "Come on inside, it's time to come in. I got everything off the line." The moment the young girl stepped upon the porch, the rain continued to pass the house and fall on it. It continued in the movement that it was meant to go. The young girl became very uncomfortable when it came night. Her hands and her feet would burn like fire. And the only thing that would stop the fire is when her mom put her hands in cold water and her feet in a pail of cold water. This was like an activation or an initiation to her spiritual gifts. Her mother took on a job at a hospital, working with patients in intensive care unit. While working the graveyard shift, it began to thunder. Lightning dashed across the sky. Huge oak trees on the side of the house began to wave with the wind. There was a small window in the kitchen, and her dad was the babysitter when Mom was at work. He worked days and she worked nights, and they always seemed to be able to change shifts at the right moment. Her dad realized that the kitchen window was left open, so he jumped up, ran to the kitchen, and she ran too. The window was sticking, and he was trying to get it closed because the rain had come inside the window. The wood began to swell. As he began to pull the window completely down, lightning hit that window. The window shattered, and a shard of glass stabbed him in his forearm, and blood began to shoot up like fireworks. He grabbed a towel and placed it over his forearm, applied pressure, and sat down on the side of his bed. The young girl sat aside of her dad. She looked up at him and noticed his eyes was white. He was stuck like an animation, suspended animation. She continued to talk to him, but he did not move. The lightning continued to strike across the sky. The thunder continued to roll and sound terrible. She jumped up in her innocence but yet fierce and ran to the kitchen. She looked up at that window, looked beyond the window into the trees, looked past the trees to the dark gray sky, and she yelled, "Leave my daddy alone! Stop!" The lightning ceased. The thunder quieted down from a great big rumble to silence. The gray skies rolled away, and the only thing was left to see was the moon. Not understanding the frame of time, even I cannot tell you how long it took for all of that to happen. But the young girl went and sat on the side of the bed next to her dad, who was still stuck in suspended animation. And upon her touching his forearm, he automatically began to move. The white of his eyes had turned back to light brown. When her dad looked at his forearm, there was no more blood. And he was able to put a Band-Aid and heal. Realizing the talents of their young daughter, you would think she would get special treatments, right? She was treated just like all the rest of her siblings. But secretly, she was her dad's baby girl. Favorite. She was the spitting image of her dad. And her dad looked exactly like his mother. As time went on, she built a lot of character based upon her dad's ethics, his cordialness, his work habits, and learned how to play golf in less than 15 minutes. Her dad chopped trees every day after work. She wanted to learn how to cut trees too, but was too young. Her dad would cut the grass, and he had a lawnmower that was self-propelled. It looked like it was so simple. It looked like child's play and fun. She asked if she could help cut the grass. Well, she got in front of that lawnmower, and her dad was holding on to it as well. She thought she was cutting grass with her daddy. Now, her daddy had a strange sense of humor. He really was a force to reckon with. She asked him one time too many, "Can I cut the grass while you resting?" He said, "You can't handle that machine." She said, "Yes I can." Well, he cranked up that lawnmower. She got behind it, and he told her, he said, "You ready?" She said, "Yeah." He said, "You sure you ready?" She said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." He released it on self-propel, and it drug her all over that acre of property. Her dad thought that was the most funniest thing that he had ever seen. And eventually, he came and got the machine because her mom came out and saw that the machine was dragging her daughter, her only daughter, all across the field. And then he apologized, but he was so tickled. He made it up to her by buying her her own swing set. And it had every attachment that you could possibly want and what you would find in a playground.